Welcome back to Table Smash Tuesday, right here on the Bills Bunker. As always, I'm your host, Jake Varco, and today it's a bit of a quiet time around the National Football League because fans have been anticipating the release of the NFL schedule, which is it's suddenly become a spectacle of its own. The NFL is it's a 12-month machine. You know, there's always stuff going on around the National Football League. We recently finished free agency, we finished the draft, and now we're awaiting the NFL schedule release, which has been teased, but there hasn't been any actual formal date announced by the NFL. There's been a bunch of previews and stuff on social media, and I'm getting sick and tired of seeing the same commercial about coming in May, the NFL schedule release, but it will happen sooner or later. And in this show, we're going to take a look ahead at the 2024 opponents for the Buffalo Bills, and we're going to take a look back at some recent transactions that were made by the Buffalo Bills as they made some signings here recently. You know, there is still a lot of spots to fill on this roster. They need to have 90 spots filled on their team ahead of the preseason and ahead of training camp, and then eventually they need to cut that down to the 53-man active roster for the regular season. So we're going to discuss some of these moves, and we're going to discuss the 2024 opponents for Buffalo in this show. And if you want to talk about anything, let me know in the comments section. We'll get to it. Let's have a good show. I'll see you on the other side.
Go Bills.
Look at this. Look at this crowd. Look at this.
Yes, it makes us wanna shout. Shout.
1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. AFC East champion in our division. Let's go.
This guy's shirtless. He's walking in.
Let's go.
That's a nice show for you. Look at it. Beautiful. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen all night. Those fireworks right there.
All right, here we go. Table Smash Tuesday. We're back. We're live. We got some activity in the comments section. Bills fan 1970. Go Bills. Joseph Clark. Go Bills. Forever and always. Go Bills. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. We're always going to say go Bills, and that's a common theme. If you see a Bills fan on the street, you know, wearing a hat or wearing a shirt, you got to say go Bills, and you expect to see someone say go Bills back. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you, like this video, like this stream, share it, tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you're new to the channel, click subscribe. Let's dive into a show. It's been an interesting week surrounding the Buffalo Bills as they made a trio of signings, some more notable than others. But I've got you covered for every single one of these signings that was made by the Buffalo Bills here over the last week. They were all announced on the same day. I believe that was last Thursday. And we're going to start off with Deion Jones, who was the first signing that was announced. I have a photo of him in Atlanta Falcons gear, but he most recently played with the Carolina Panthers last season in 2023. And in Carolina, he played in 13 games, recording 35 total tackles with 4 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and 6 passes defended. Deion Jones is a veteran. He's 29 years old at the linebacker position, and Jones is someone who he has some valuable experience. He played in a Super Bowl, which did not go well for him. He was a member of that Atlanta Falcons team that once had a 28-3 lead over the GOAT. Yeah, I said it. The GOAT, Tom Brady. And yeah, that didn't end well. We all know how that went. They ended up losing in overtime, blowing that lead. One of the worst blown leads in NFL history, the biggest blown lead in Super Bowl history. But that's not a testament to Deion Jones. Deion Jones, he's so new. He has had an injury history over the last few years, but the Bills are bringing him in on a veteran deal here. It's a cheap price to pay for someone who has valuable experience at the linebacker position. And it makes sense for Buffalo to sign Deion Jones because when you look at the linebacker position last year, obviously, they have Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard, both expected to return from their season-ending injuries they suffered last season. That's going to be a massive boost to the linebacker spot. But you don't want to be in the same spot you were in the playoffs last year where you have to sign A.J. Klein off the streets to go ahead and try to cover Travis Kelce and slow down the Kansas City Chiefs offense. You want someone that's going to be in game shape, that's going to be ready, and that's going to be more familiar with the defensive scheme. Obviously, AJ Klein's familiar with the defensive scheme, but he wasn't even, I don't think he was in football shape. I don't think he was anticipating getting a call from the Buffalo Bills at that point in time. So signing Deion Jones, it helps add more depth to the linebacker position, which is already a loaded unit. The Bills also drafted Adefon Ulofoshio out of Washington at that position. So the Bills are stocking up at the linebacker position, adding to that linebacker core. And honestly, it makes sense. It makes sense to do it. They also added on the defense again by signing Dwayne Smoot from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who another veteran. He's someone who has, I believe, 9 years of NFL experience, 10 total tackles, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble last season. Some pretty underwhelming stats from Smoot in 2023. But like I said at the top of the show, the Bills at this point in time, they have a lot of spots to fill before the team gets to training camp and into the preseason. This team has to have 90 roster spots filled. So at this point in time, you're going to have people competing for roster spots on the final 53-man roster, and you're going to have players that are, just competing for a role there. And in case someone gets injured, you have some more depth with some experience. Dwayne Smoot, that's all right. It doesn't hurt to add someone with that experience at all. In the comment section, we got Will Smith, the celebrity, Bills MF Mafia. Yes, sir. Bills Mafia. We the Mafia. We the Mafia. I love that song. Yo, Red, White, and Bills in the comments section. Nice to see you. Steph says, I think Claypool is going to be a dud with personality issues. Well, here you go. That was a little precursor because this is the next person we have to talk about. Chase Claypool was an addition made by the Buffalo Bills on the same day that these signings were announced via X by the Buffalo Bills account. So here's what I have for you about Chase Claypool. Very, very interesting person this guy is. Chase Claypool in 2023 spent time with the Chicago Bears and the Miami Dolphins. He was traded from Chicago to Miami ahead of the trade deadline in exchange for a 6th-round pick. Chicago also had to give Miami a 7th-round pick, kind of just to get rid of him. Miami took him on, added some more depth to their wide receiver core there, and he only had 4 receptions with the Dolphins. As a whole, last season, Chase Claypool had 8 receptions for 77 yards and just 1 touchdown. That's a far cry of the production that we've once seen from someone who is a self-proclaimed top 3 wide receiver. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, I've got you covered. This is Chase Claypool calling himself a top 3 wide receiver.
Fact, I am not like the rest of the guys in the NFL.
Talk your talk,
I know I'm a top 5 receiver.
Yeah.
I know I'm a top 3 receiver.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
keep going. Keep going.
You know, I just
Can we
got to
get
prove
some
to
numbers?
people, right? When I'm working, I'm like, oh, you know what I'm saying? I'm a dog. Like,
Right.
like I'm a dog. People line up across from me too. And I just got to bring that confidence, and I got to bring that spirit, and I just got to show the people. And it's going to happen, and we're going to rewind this, and we're going to see this clip in a little bit, and they're like, damn.
Can we see numbers?
He was right.
Can I hear some numbers?
Yeah, we're going to go 1,300,
Yeah.
10 plus.
And the 1,300 and 10 plus he's referring to is 1,300 yards and 10 total touchdowns in his first 2 NFL seasons, which Chase Claypool, when he first entered the National Football League, I mean, he looked like he was going to be an emerging young star. His first season in the National Football League was his best. His rookie season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, here's his numbers. 62 receptions for 873 yards and 9 touchdowns. And Chase Claypool stands in at 6'4", 238 pounds at just 25 years old. So Chase Claypool, obviously, he's a specimen of a human being, and he has all the potential. He has the makings of a really solid wide receiver, but he hasn't been able to find that success that he once had in Pittsburgh with an aging Ben Roethlisberger as his quarterback. Since then, his quarterbacks have been guys like Justin Fields, Trevor Siemian, Nathan Peterman, and Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, that's definitely not Josh Allen. So, am I expecting a lot from Chase Claypool in 2024? Definitely not. But I will say that this is a low risk, high reward signing for the Buffalo Bills, and if it turns out well, the Bills are gonna look like geniuses. But with that being said, this is a lot of people are talking about, oh, Chase Claypool, locker room cancer, he talks too much. Yeah, I could see that. But with that being said, Chase Claypool, he's going to have to be on his best behavior, because I recently made a video about this whole Chase Claypool situation. This is a guy that was added to the exclusive negotiation list by the Saskatchewan Roughriders of the Canadian Football League. Basically, what that means is the Roughriders were anticipating Claypool wouldn't be signed by an NFL team this offseason. They were anticipating that he might want a fresh start in the CFL. And would he probably tear it up in the CFL? You'd think so. You'd hope so. But the Buffalo Bills here, they decided to take a shot on Chase Claypool because it makes sense. The Bills, they could use some wide receiver help. I think their wide receiver core is solid, young wide receiver core. A lot of people don't like it, but there's definitely some potential there. Khalil Shakir, emerging young talent at the slot wide receiver position. Keon Coleman, just 20 years old. He's turning 21 in a few weeks. He's a solid wide receiver that we haven't really seen yet in the NFL yet, though. There's a lot of unknown about Keon Coleman and what he'll bring to the Bills at the next level in the National Football League. One thing is for certain, and that's he's going to be utilized in the red zone. Just that size, it's obvious. But with Chase Claypool coming to the Buffalo Bills, low risk, high reward signing. There's not really a big downside to it. People will say, yeah, he talks too much, he runs his mouth, whatever. But the thing about Chase Claypool is the Buffalo Bills, you look at what they did with Stephon Diggs here. Stephon Diggs was owed a lot of money, and the Bills had no problem getting rid of him due to what is assumed to be locker room issues. The Bills got rid of Stephon Diggs for a second-round pick next year. They were willing to take on over $30 million of dead cap just to get him off their team. Chase Claypool's entering a situation with the Buffalo Bills where he is pretty much on his last legs in the NFL. This could very well be his last opportunity in the National Football League, because if he can't make it work in Buffalo, he's probably not going to make it work anywhere else. So, with all that being said, I have absolute faith that if something were to go wrong in that locker room with Chase Claypool, he'd be off the team really quick. And honestly, he's going to have to compete just to be on the 53-man roster come opening day. So Chase Claypool, to me, low risk, high reward signing. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It is what it is. The guy's got potential. He's just 25 years old. He's a former standout at Notre Dame. He had 2 solid seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers when Ben Roethlisberger was his quarterback. But since then, a significant drop-off in production. He's really going to have to step up his game if he wants to be a member of the Bills and if he wants to remain in the National Football League. Because really, right now, he's best remembered for that top 3 comment, which at this point is just laughable. And he's also remembered for this play right here. A play where the Pittsburgh Steelers were down. You can see 40 seconds left. He picks up the first down. That's great. But he celebrates as the team's in the 2-minute drill with the clock winding down by 8 points. That got him a stern talking to from head coach Mike Tomlin on the sideline. And if you know anything about Mike Tomlin, it's that he doesn't put up with that nonsense. So that stuff's not going to fly in Buffalo. You better believe that. And Chase Claypool here, really low risk, high reward signing. I have no problem with it whatsoever. It could work out in a big-time way because we know that he's never played with someone quite like Josh Allen. He played with Roethlisberger, but Roethlisberger, those were his final years in the National Football League. He went to Miami last year with Tua for a few games, and he never really got situated into that offense. In Chicago, in the Windy City with Justin Fields, Trevor Siemian, Nathan Peterman, that's a joke. He has a chance here, but he really has to make the most of it. Red, White, and Bill says, imagine if we can get rookie Claypool. He's going to ball out. I can't wait. I can feel it. And I hope you're right. I really do. Because if it does work out, the Bills are going to look like Brandon Beane's going to look like a genius if this does work out. Because Chase Claypool, we know he has the potential. He has all the measurables. 6'4", 238 pounds. Someone who's posted back-to-back 800-yard seasons in his first 2 years in the National Football League. But since then, a complete drop-off in production. So another angle that you can take with this whole Chase Claypool situation is the fact that Claypool, he might not have been motivated over the last few years, but he better be motivated now. He better be motivated now. Claypool to the CFL. He has the measurables, but it sucked. And you're right. He has sucked. He has sucked over the last few seasons. There's no doubt about it. But entering a situation with Josh Allen as his quarterback is a situation that he has never had before. It's a situation that's really desirable for any wide receiver in the National Football League, let alone a wide receiver who knows that this is probably their last shot in the NFL. If that doesn't motivate him, then he is a lost cause. But there is a lot of potential for that upside with this signing, and the Bills didn't give him too much money. And if it's a problem, he'll be gone before the season even starts. So we're going to find out a lot about Chase Claypool and what he brings to the table really quickly. And honestly, I'm excited to see how it all plays out because this is someone who does have that potential. Chase Claypool definitely has the potential to go off with the Buffalo Bills for at least like a 700-yard campaign. Will he do it? It depends on a lot of things. Am I counting on it? No, I'm not counting on it. The Bills have other wide receivers. They have other offensive weapons. They have Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox as a tight end duo. They have James Cook out of the backfield. They have Josh Allen, who has his legs. And, hey, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. They've got a lot of players. They've got a lot of guys who are going to be competing for those final 2 wide receiver spots on this team. Wide receiver 5 and 6, depending on how many wide receivers the Bills carry on their active 53-man roster come opening day. So Chase Claypool, he's going to have to fight just to make the team. And if he makes the team, that tells me that he wants it. And if he wants it, who knows? Maybe he can have a bit of a spark for the Buffalo Bills offense. So those were some of the moves that were made by the Buffalo Bills. 3 signings, nothing too major, but Chase Claypool obviously being the biggest news surrounding the team in terms of their signings. Now, something else that I found out to be really interesting. I don't know if anyone here watches Netflix. I don't watch Netflix, but I did, however, keep tabs on X throughout the Tom Brady roast. And that stuff, obviously, as Bills fans, were the polar opposite of Patriots fans. But I found this stuff so interesting. I thought it was all pretty hilarious. It was hilarious to see Tom Brady, Edelman, Gronk, even Bill Belichick, Drew Bledsoe, Robert Kraft, like all those guys on that Tom Brady roast. It was hilarious. Kevin Hart had some really good shots at Tom Brady too. But Tom Brady, he took a shot at Bills Mafia the other day. And, Tom Brady finished his NFL career with a 33-3 record against the Buffalo Bills. He was in the league while the Buffalo Bills were in the midst of a 17-year playoff drought, and every single time Tom Brady came into Buffalo, you knew it was pretty much always going to be a loss. Tom Brady had this to say about Bills Mafia on Sunday.
I'm trying to buy a piece of the Raiders. I'm tired of owning just the Colts and the Bills. Buffalo fans call themselves the Bills Mafia. How are you the fucking Mafia? At least the Mafia has a ring you can kiss.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta give it to him. It was pretty funny. I don't love it, obviously being a Bills fan, but I can take the humor. It's all in good humor. It is what it is. Tom Brady owned the Buffalo Bills throughout his career. Do I like him? No, but you have to respect the hell out of his accomplishments on the field. 33-3 in his career against the Buffalo Bills, and after that, 34-3 against the Bills. And if you haven't yet, I do suggest you go check out that Tom Brady roast because there was a lot of fun stuff coming out of that. Tom Brady was he was different. 7 Super Bowl rings, more than any team in the National Football League has. That's crazy. This guy had like 3 careers, and he made a career of just humiliating the Buffalo Bills. And he did it again the other day. Now, Bills Mafia, we stand strong together. We're a great fan base, but he got us there. I truly believe that. Now we're going to talk about the NFL schedule. The NFL schedule release, we've been waiting on this thing for quite some time. And we've seen some X post from the NFL X account. And it says, coming soon. That's all we got was coming soon, coming in May. And everyone was anticipating that the NFL schedule would be released tomorrow, Thursday, May 9th. Or I guess Thursday, May 9th, 2 days from now. But that looks like it's not going to happen by stuff I've read online. And if you read up online, I'm sure you'll be saying the same thing. A lot of the articles that I'm reading are saying Thursday, May 16th now. I just want this schedule to come out. I'm trying to go to some away games. I'm trying to plan some trips here. I'm trying to plan some stuff for the channel. We don't have any clarity. We want to know what's happening with the NFL schedule. I think I'm in the same boat as everyone else here. So with that being said, I was planning on, talking more about the schedule, but we will. There's not any news surrounding that. But we can talk. And Steph says they need to get the schedule out on the same date every year. Wouldn't that be nice? Typically, it's been 2 weeks after the draft or the second Thursday of May over the last few years. But not now. Not right now, by the looks of it. Bills versus Cards, what week is it? That's really a filler game. Like, that's probably going to be a 1 p.m. game for sure. But I have a list of the Buffalo Bills 2024 opponents. I'll get to that in a second because Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, sent out an X post today, and it said, "I smell a 2024 schedule coming out soon." Jim Irsay, he is teasing a schedule release coming soon, and not Bills fans, NFL fans, football fans want this schedule to be released as soon as possible. We are craving it. We are now in the dog days here where there's not training camp. The draft just finished. We're waiting for some news from the National Football League, and they're withholding this information from us. Just give us the NFL schedule already. For crying out loud, I know there's got to be a lot that goes into it, but you've had 2 weeks since the draft, which I'm sure the draft changed some stuff, changed some of the games and the scheduling, but just give it to us, please. We want the schedule to be released. Let's take a look at the Buffalo Bills 2024 opponents. Joseph Clark says best game of the schedule. I've got a little thing planned for you here, so just stay tuned for a moment. Steph says we want to know when the Houston game is against Diggs. I do. That is a game that I fully intend on going down to Houston for that game, and I'm waiting. I anticipate that will be an early game, early in the season, because obviously it's a storyline where you want it to be relevant. Diggs, Allen, Diggs, Bills. That's something that I could see happening prime time, one of the first 2 weeks of the season, because the last thing that the National Football League wants is to miss opportunities. Like, I know that Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, they're scheduled to play against the Minnesota Vikings at some point this season, and I'm sure they'll do the same thing here as with Diggs. I'm sure those games are both going to be scheduled early, while those are relevant storylines. They want those relevant storylines to come out early, and then you want some of those more impactful games on the division and the conference standings to be later in the season. So let's take a look at the Buffalo Bills 2024 opponents. Here's what we've got. The Buffalo Bills 2024 opponents at home. Okay, we'll start off with the division. We know home and away, Patriots, Dolphins, Jets. 2 games against each one of those division teams. For the home games, the Bills will face off against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans, Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So some tough home opponents for the Buffalo Bills there. You're getting both the teams that played in the Super Bowl. You're getting a Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse return game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that has historically not been too good to the Buffalo Bills. And if you look last year, the Bills were supposed to play Jacksonville at home in a home game that actually ended up being played overseas in London. And the Jaguars definitely had a distinct advantage being over there a week prior, playing another week. I believe it was against the Atlanta Falcons a week prior. So the Jaguars definitely had a distinct advantage in that game. Don't get me started on that one. Away, continuing with the AFC South trend, they'll be facing off against the Houston Texans, Stephon Diggs, the Indianapolis Colts, and then they'll face off against the NFC West opponents, Los Angeles Rams, Seattle Seahawks, and they're going up against the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. So that is a total of 9 away games, and you have 8 home games as well. So with all that being said, that's your 17-game schedule. What I find interesting is I took a look on FanDuel today, and FanDuel has the Buffalo Bills regular season win total over or under 10.5 wins. What do you think? Are the Buffalo Bills going to have over or under 10.5 wins in the 2024 season? I get that there's a lot of turnaround with this team. There's a lot of change with this team. But I find this is a little bit of a disrespectful number. They're basically asking, do you think the Bills are going to be better or worse next season? And a lot of people, the popular opinion is probably they're going to be worse. But are they going to be that much worse where they only get 10 wins or less? Because to me, I'm looking at this 10.5 at plus money. That looks like a real value pick to me. It really does. Plus 112 for the Buffalo Bills to go over 10.5 wins in 2024. To me, it's a little crazy because the Buffalo Bills last season, they finished their season on a 5-game winning streak in the regular season and finished their season 11-6. So what am I missing here? I get that the opponents are tough. Like right here, if I'm counting losses, I mean, games that the Bills could lose, you can lose any game, but they've got some tough opponents for sure. But I count 10 wins here easily for the Buffalo Bills. Is that just me? Over or under 10.5 wins? Let me know in the comment section down below. What are we thinking? Steph says under. Wow. So you think the Bills are going to regress big time next season? Joseph Clark says, are you taking over? Well, all right, let me do this. 2024 opponents. I think they're home games. You've got, the Cardinals is a win. The Titans is a win. The Jets, you probably split with the Jets because they've been the kryptonite for Josh Allen over the last few years. Patriots should win both those games. Like, you're going to drop at least one of the games against the Super Bowl opponents from last year at home. Jacksonville hasn't been good to us, so I'll say the Bills will lose 2, maybe 3 of their home games. And then on the road is where it's tough. I think they'll beat Baltimore. Yeah, like, I'm not going to go full record prediction right now, but I do think the Bills finish with over 10.5 wins. I think they get at least 11 wins. Just think about how they went last year. Steph says it's a different team. Yes, it's a different team, but it's going to be largely basically what we saw last season was in the second half of the season. The Bills went away from like the aerial attack of Josh Allen slinging the rock down the field, and they became more of a run-first team. James Cook was solid for the Buffalo Bills in the second half of the season. So was Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. Like, the Bills had a lot of emerging young stars, and they didn't force Josh Allen to do anything too crazy in the back half of the season. I'm expecting more of that in the upcoming season. They've proved that they can win games like that. Are there question marks on the defense? Sure, there is. But I don't think there's that much of a question mark to the point where the over-under win total should be 10.5. I think it should be more 11.5. Because the Bills, at 11.5 wins, that's saying, do you think they're going to be the same or better? At this point, you're asking better, or at this point with 10.5, you're asking, are they going to be worse or are they going to be the same? So I think over under 10.5, I'd take the over here for sure. I think over 10.5 wins. That's my opinion, but I want to know everyone's in the comments. Now, if you haven't yet, I encourage you, like this live stream, share this video, tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you're new here, click subscribe. I go live every Tuesday night, and we're anticipating the NFL schedule to be released sometime soon, hopefully over the next week or so. It was looking like it was going to be Thursday, May 9th. Doesn't look that way now based off reports and everything I've read. It's looking more like Thursday, May 16th. NFL is really making us wait for it, but good things come to those who wait. So we'll wait. We'll be waiting for it, 100%. Tattle Bun says, hey, how about that Van Praying Granger guy? Cedric Van Praying Granger, honestly, is perhaps my favorite pick of this draft class. Like, late round draft pick, that was my favorite one. Think he's going to work out well with us. I think Van Praying Granger, obviously we need to see how he transitions to the National Football League, but this is a guy who, he's a very decorated athlete at the collegiate level. Here's a list of his accomplishments. 6'4", 310 pounds, 22 years old, and he played in 44 straight games. So he's a durable offensive lineman. He's a center. He's not someone who's going to play guard. He's going to be a center. First team All SEC, second team All American selection. And in 2023, on 485 pass blocking snaps, he allowed 0 sacks. Some solid stuff from Van Praying Granger, who the Buffalo Bills managed to pick up in the 5th round. And this is someone that could compete for a starting spot at the center position on day 1. We've heard about Connor McGovern moving over to the center position. The Bills also added Will Clapp from the Los Angeles Chargers via free agency. However, Van Pran, look at this. His former Georgia Bulldogs teammate was James Cook. And James Cook, in case you didn't know, newsflash, he's the Buffalo Bills star running back. And having that chemistry as an offensive lineman with a running back is something that's so pivotal. You want to have, if you're a running back, you need to know. You need to know where the holes are going to be created. You need to have a better read. And in order to have those better reads, you need to have chemistry with the guys blocking in front of you. Van Praying Granger, he has all the tools, and he has the icing on the cake of being a former teammate of James Cook. So I truly believe that this is someone that could very well end up competing for a starting spot on the Bills offensive line as a 5th round pick. And if that ends up being the case, that's an absolute steal by Brandon Beane. He would have found a diamond in the rough right there. The Bills added 3 offensive linemen in the back half of the draft on day 3. Also adding Tylan Grable and Travis Clayton from the NFL's International Pathway Program. A guy who's never played, but if you look at his measurables, they're off the chart. He's a rugby background. He's a tough guy. 6'7", over 300 pounds. One freak athlete. But my favorite pick on day 3 was definitely Van Preen Granger out of Georgia. Okay. So, back to the schedule. That hasn't been released yet. We're going to take a look at the opponents again, and I'm going to highlight the games that I'm looking forward to most for the Buffalo Bills this offseason. Obviously, the Bills, they have a lot of interesting storylines. A lot of players departed and found new teams. There's a lot of interesting storylines surrounding this team this year. These are the games that I'm looking forward to most for Buffalo in 2024. And we're going to start off with the obvious. It's the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills. That is one heck of a storyline. I'm anticipating that that's going to be one of the first few weeks of the season. It's going to be a primetime matchup. Sunday, Monday, Thursday night football. One of those time slots is going to be there. You can book it. I guarantee it. I almost guarantee it. If it doesn't happen, I'll be really surprised. I'm not a schedule maker, but if the NFL doesn't schedule the Buffalo Bills and Houston Texans in one of those first 3 weeks on a primetime slot, they're really missing the mark here because the viewership numbers for that game will be off the charts. Stephon Diggs, all the drama surrounding him and the Bills for months, heck, years. And now those two teams are going to face off. That needs to be a primetime game, and that's a game that you all, Bills Mafia is definitely looking forward to it. So are the fans down in Texas. Houston Texans fans, they want to see Diggs get the revenge. And on the other side, Bills Mafia wants to see Josh Allen go into Houston and get a win. Stephon Diggs drop a dud and drop a pass like he did in the Kansas City Chiefs AFC divisional round game. Speaking of the Chiefs, another game that we have to be looking forward to is at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that has had our number in the playoffs, defeating the Buffalo Bills, eliminating them from playoff contention in 3 of the last 4 seasons. It sucks that the Chiefs have been doing this. However, the Bills in the regular season, they have the Chiefs number. The Bills have beat the Chiefs in their last 3 regular season meetings. Now, does that matter? Not really. But without that win against Kansas City at Arrowhead last year in week 11, I believe it was, the Bills wouldn't have made the playoffs. So that's obviously a big game. That's one that it's going to be a primetime game. Again, it has to be Mahomes against Allen. Anytime you have those two going up against each other, it's must-watch television. It's a must-watch football game. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, 2 top dogs in the National Football League at the quarterback position. They're going to go head-to-head in Buffalo once again, and that's a game that all Bills fans are definitely looking forward to. It's a game that has to be on primetime. I'll give you 2 more. 2 more games that I'm looking forward to the most. So we covered Houston. We covered Kansas City. Next up, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. Now this one, it's a little interesting. People might think that's an interesting pick, but for me, there's some storylines involved in this one as well. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse will be returning to Buffalo. And on top of that, last season, we saw the Buffalo Bills face off against the Jaguars in London, England. Obviously, we all know how that game turned out. We saw Diggs throwing his sideline. He was disgruntled. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, they got the win after being there for a full week longer than the Bills. The Bills got there, I think it was the Friday before the game started. It was a Sunday morning game. And the Jags were there practicing all week long. They were used to it all. So let's see what the Bills can do with an actual home game against Jacksonville next year. For me, that's number 3 on games I'm looking forward to. And number 4 is at Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens, we all know that they're a team that they're consistently in the mix of the top teams in the AFC. They're in a loaded AFC North division. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. This is a game that I see being probably, it could be a primetime matchup. It might not be, but it's most likely going to be later in the season. Those are two teams that are going to be scratching and clawing to fight out for like the rankings in the AFC playoff race. And two top quarterbacks in the National Football League, at least two of the biggest names in the National Football League. MVP Lamar Jackson going up against a guy who was probably should have been the MVP in Josh Allen, but he wasn't ultimately. So that right there is another one of those games that I'm really looking forward to. My four games I'm looking forward to the most next season: Houston, Kansas City, Jacksonville, and Baltimore. And I think another interesting one, I'll give you one more, is probably the San Francisco 49ers at home. The San Francisco 49ers, obviously, they just went to the Super Bowl. So it's like one of those measuring stick games for the Bills. And I guess I should use the term measuring stick lightly because we know that the Bills are a good team. They've been consistent perennial playoff contenders over the last 6-7 years now. But with that being said, there's been a lot of turnaround on this team. The San Francisco 49ers, they just got Leonard Floyd from the Buffalo Bills. Another interesting angle you can look at there. But I don't think it really compares to the other storylines that I've covered of Stephon Diggs and the Houston Texans or Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And then obviously the return of Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse. Trav DeSav says the Bills are going to be trash this year. The Bills are going to be trash for a long time. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, hey, I give a lot of respect to the Chiefs Kingdom. And you come on here saying that? Unbelievable. You know, why do you think the Bills are going to be trash? Because they traded Stephon Diggs? Newsflash, Stephon Diggs in the last, back half of the season was irrelevant. He did nothing for the Bills. He took on some double coverages, sure, but it was the other players that made the offense click. And you know what? We'll see. It's always a fun game when the Bills and Chiefs meet up, and I'm looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to seeing the Kansas City Chiefs in Buffalo again next season. And I'd like to get to go down to Arrowhead for a game sometime because it looks like a fun time. And hopefully the Bills will get a W. Bills fan 2020 says hot take, 14-3 record, referring to the Buffalo Bills. That would be awesome. I'd love it. I'm not anticipating that, but hey, that's why it's called the hot take. Bills versus Ravens. What should the 2023 AFC Championship game? I don't really know. But yeah. Purdy, Mahomes, Tagovailoa, Rodgers, Stroud, Lawrence, just to name a few. Yeah, I mean, Tagovailoa, it's always fun to squish the fish, but I ain't, the Bills-Dolphins games are fun. I went down to the Bills-Miami game last season, Week 18. I went to the game Week 4 last year where the Bills slaughtered the Dolphins 48-20. It's always fun to watch, but Tua Tagovailoa, Bills Mafia, we're all begging the Miami Dolphins to give that guy a massive contract extension because he is a very limited quarterback. Everybody knows that at this point. It's been exposed. He sucks in the cold weather. He did it in Kansas City. He did it in Buffalo. That guy has his limitations. Every time he gets on national television in December or January, he wets the bed. So, you know what? Tagovailoa, whatever. Rodgers will be interesting to see. Aaron Rodgers is someone who, coming off that torn Achilles, he's on the wrong side of, 40 now? So, Aaron Rodgers is going to be interesting to see what he can do with the Jets. I think the Jets they should be better, but they have they signed so many talented players, but they all have injury histories, like Tyron Smith, Mike Williams, Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are interesting, but they're still the Jets. They're still the Jets. Bills fan says, even I hate the Dolphins, I love for Miami. It's a beautiful city. It was a good time when I went down to Miami, for sure. It was a good time. Got to get some sunshine, although it rained quite a bit when I was there. But the most notable part about, like, obviously the game was awesome to watch the Bills. It was a tight game, 21-14. Taylor Rapp got the final interception to wrap up the division title for Buffalo. But it's just so crazy how Buffalo fans went down there. It was like a herd. The Buffalo herd went down to Miami and took it over. All along the Fort Lauderdale beach. There's so many Bills fans there. It must have been at least 40,000 Bills fans down there. And it was legit a Bills Mafia takeover in Miami. Something I'll never forget. Never forget. MV says, yo, what's up? Go Bills. So, yeah. I mean, interesting stuff. If you haven't yet, click like. I encourage you to share this video and tell a friend about the Bills Bunker and about Table Smash Tuesday. Looking to do some big stuff this season. And go to some games. I don't know when those games are going to be because we're still waiting for the schedule to be released, but it's coming in due time. Good things come to those who wait. We'll be waiting. We'll be waiting. Positive to Buffalo Bills. Spread the positivity. Spread the love. Let's go. Looking forward to the little people. I'm not sure what you mean, but okay. Yeah. Hey, love it. No one is a Leafs fan right now. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious. The Leafs, the Leafs, we all knew that the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to do that, right? Like, the Buffalo Sabres are the Sabres. It is what it is with the Sabres. But we all knew that the Leafs were going to do it. We all knew what was going to happen with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Funny stuff. Who's the biggest underdog going into camp? Biggest underdog player to look out for. The guy that a lot of people are talking about is there's a few. That's a good question. You got me stumped for a second here. So a lot of people are talking about Justin Shorter, who he was picked up by the Bills last offseason. He dealt with some injuries coming out of Florida. He could be trying to crack the final 53-man roster. I think the guy with the biggest chip on his shoulder is Chase Claypool, though, just because of what we've talked about and how Chase Claypool, like, this could be his final run in the National Football League. If he can't make it work in Buffalo, he's not going to make it work anywhere. So I think he has the biggest chip on his shoulder. But who's the biggest underdog going into camp? I got to think about that. I really got to think about that. I'll come back to this. That's interesting. Good question. The Little People collection, the toy figures. Oh, the collection toys? Oh, those things. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. I had no idea what you're talking about, the Little People. I was so confused. Okay. I thought you were talking about Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys. That guy's like 4'11", running back. It's crazy. I've never had those, but they're interesting little things. I've seen them at the Bill store and stuff. They're interesting for sure. Okay, I got to address this question. Who's the biggest underdog going into camp? I think, you know what? Kaiir Elam is a guy to look out for. The Bills at the cornerback position, Kaiir Elam's a former first-round pick. In 2022, he is a first-round pick that the Bills even traded up for to draft out of Florida at the cornerback position. The Bills right now, their cornerback depth it's solid, but there has been some notable departures. No Dane Jackson. There's no more Tre'Davious White here, although he's been injured over the last few seasons, back-to-back season-ending injuries. So there's some holes to fill. There's some players that need to step up. And I'm anticipating that the Bills, really, this is a make-or-break year for Kaiir Elam. He has to have a massive chip on his shoulder. And we've talked about in the past, like, are the Bills going to try to utilize him in a trade package? That has not been done. And I can't imagine. I'd imagine that Kaiir Elam's trade value at this point in time is very low. Right now, the Bills, that's someone that the Bills need to step up. They need Kaiir Elam to start producing in the National Football League. And another underdog that I'll give to you in the secondary is Taylor Rapp. Obviously, last year he made some contributions in the secondary at the safety position. His most notable play was Week 18 with that interception that sealed the division title for Buffalo. But there's going to be a lot of players competing for the two safety spots, the starting role. And I think it's going to be something that we see a lot of different packages. We see a lot of rotations in Sean McDermott's defensive scheme, like Mike Edwards, Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, and Cole Bishop, your second-round pick out of Utah. Those are your players that you have competing for the safety spots. I think Taylor Rapp is probably going to end up taking one of those starting roles. He was pretty solid for the Bills last year, but he has to go out there in training camp and in preseason, and I'm sure he's going to have to earn a starting role. Mike Edwards, he's going to be competing for that role as well. Someone who he has started in 2 Super Bowls, one with the Kansas City Chiefs and one with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, winning both. There's going to be some interesting competitions in that secondary this year, and I'd say Kaiir Elam definitely needs to step up for Buffalo. Bills fan 2020. I've made this comparison before. I love it. The Leafs are the Cowboys of the NFL. It's true. You know why? We'll talk about this for a second. The Dallas Cowboys. Love them or hate them. I got it. Love them or hate them. See? I always have this hat handy. Love them or hate them. The Dallas Cowboys are a team that they have a great history, no doubt about it. They beat the Bills in 2 Super Bowls in the 90s. They've won, 5 Super Bowls? I believe they have 5 Super Bowls. Great history. Just like the Toronto Maple Leafs have a great history, 13 Stanley Cup wins. But when was the last time either team did it? The expectations for both the Cowboys and the Leafs are sky high every single season. They don't change stuff. The Leafs have a guy like Mitch Marner. The Cowboys have Dak Prescott. Guys who are limited in what they can do. And they just don't. They don't produce in the big time moments. Hamlin for Defensive Player of the Year. Not even Comeback Player of the Year. But on that note, we're getting off track. We're talking about Cowboys. We're talking about Leafs. I think this is where we end the show now. So, if you haven't yet, click like, share this video, tell a friend about Table Smash Tuesday. And if you're new here, click subscribe. I appreciate everyone joining the show tonight. Thank you for always. Don't wear that hat in Texas, he says. I'm tempted to. I'm really tempted to. Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I'm Jake Varco. This is the Bills Bunker. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Look at this. Look at this crowd. Look at this.
Yes, it makes us wanna shout. Shout!
1, 2, 3, 4 years in a row. AFC East champs, baby. In our division. Let's go.
This guy's sure Lindsay's off in it.
Let's go.
That's a nice show for you. Look at it. Beautiful. Honestly, one of the best things I've seen all night. Those fireworks right there.